Hey fam. So I'm back to talk about unlearning the good wife training, or as I like to call it because I'm Indian, Indian wife training, which growing up I was basically unconsciously, I think subconsciously trained to do by the people around me in my culture, particularly my parents. And it, what really started to crack this open for me is that, like, I feel like I started waking up really slowly. It was almost as if I was just like getting rid of somebody else's voice in my head that was telling me that I should be doing this, shouldn't be doing that, and what it meant to sort of be a woman, what it meant to be an Indian woman or brown woman, and what does a good woman look like in our culture, in our society. And uh, one of the things that I heard a friend say, who was sharing with me the other day, is a lot of the stuff that makes her angry is she's just starting to see things for what they really are. And, she's like, if I could just go back and tell my 20-year-old self that she was beautiful and that she was brilliant, and that she could also ask for help, like everything would be different. So I want to talk a little bit about, where did this programming begin as I was growing up? It didn't start in marriage, definitely not in my first marriage. It started way, way earlier than that when I was a kid. It's how we are raised, many of us. It's how we were seen to be or perceived to be as good or worthy. And it's what we were told and what was reflected back to us that were things that we needed to keep in mind, that we needed to be. And so, one of the experiences that I had as a young woman is sort of like I was constantly compared to other girls in my community. The basis of comparison was always around my looks, the things that they were doing, culturally, like affiliated with our temple, the fact that they were so nice and demure and polite. I want to believe that he didn't have ill intentions. He didn't know any better. There's been a lot of therapy to work through that, but that was really weird because I was also navigating two cultures. Right, I was an Indian American kid growing up in the southern United States, and I'll talk a lot about this on this channel. So don't worry, we're gonna go deep into what it's like being from the South. But I also would like grew up as a fat kid, which had all of this other stigma associated with it in my community. It's literally like the worst thing you could be. Forget about if I was like an axe murderer or whatever. It's right up there with like not being smart. So, imagine like a fat, awkward Indian kid in the South when no one understood what being Indian was. And we weren't really celebrating Indianness back then. And there was like this clear message from the adults around me as who were from my community. If you are not fair skinned, if you're not thin or shapely, then you don't have worth. If you're not beautiful, then you damn well better be useful. And what being useful mean is doing housework, like assisting in the kitchen, cleaning, doing chores, all of that kind of stuff that also was a mark of your worthiness in the culture. And these were the things that were like the indications of femininity for the adults around me. And so, like I was saying, a lot of my friends who were growing up in the community, friends and non-friends, were doing Indian traditional dance. They were doing Bharatanatyam. One of my really good friends would, around a specific holiday every year, she would fast for like 12 days for a good husband. And there was a group of girls that did this, and they belonged to the Jain community. And, for what it's worth, I think they all got pretty good husbands. Like, none of them are divorced. They all seem to be doing well. But if you weren't sort of doing these things, if you weren't sort of representing your culture at the temple, dancing in public, and were like a soft and demure type of girl who was tiny and didn't take up a lot of space, then you were accepted. And that was like the archetype of femininity, and they were doing it right. And what was told to me is that I was doing it wrong. And it wasn't said explicitly. It's just said in the comparisons, like, oh, she's so beautiful. Oh, look at, she does so well. She dances so well. Oh, Avni, why don't you do this or do that? So I was always on the outside of that. And I always felt, less than. And so what I realized is that, good wife training was being taught to us without explicit words. And I didn't realize it, but all of us were getting trained not to necessarily be nuanced, whole people, but to fit into this mold, and specifically so that we could be good wives and good caretakers to other people. And like this syllabus was unspoken, but it was very, very real. It was very palpable. And the older I got, the more I realized it. So much of this training was about being like the emotional strength for a family. And I know that's super, super common in Black and brown communities around the world. So sisters, if you're hearing this and like you can identify with that, can we please talk about that in the comments? Because this idea that emotional unpaid labor is solely our job as women in the family was sort of drilled into me and was modeled to me in so many different ways. I mean, I could spend hours and hours talking to you about how that was shared with me. We were expected to pick up the slack. We were the secretaries of our families. And we did it because we were told it was our job. Like, it's like there's no option for the men of the family to do this. And this is also a part of what makes you a good wife. A wife who is useful, efficient, who doesn't complain, who just picks up whatever is not being done and does it. And along with that, there's this idea of expressing anger. And that's not being okay. Like, I would only ever see my mom and my aunt and my grandmother express anger very rarely. And that too, they would sort of stuff it all in and they would explode. And I had a conversation with two young women that I work with at my organization on Friday. And we were talking about the fact that, like, in our cultures, and they're from the Middle East, we just stuff down anger and it lives in our bodies and we never deal with it. And it's not only our anger that we're carrying so many generations before us. We're carrying their anger too. So expressing anger is not okay. Expressing displeasure is not okay. You just had to be like the girl that was down for everything. You had to smile through it all. So my first marriage was the beginning of the breaking point for me. I took all of that conditioning into my first marriage, and hello, I am no longer married to that person. And that marriage failed for various reasons. Another topic for another video, but I lost myself in this programming completely. I contorted myself. I made myself small. I put my needs aside. Like, there was so many years that I just wanted to go back to school, but I let my ex do it first because I wanted to support him, and I put my needs last. And ultimately, the marriage broke down, and I was cast aside because I wasn't fun or useful enough in a specific situation where my partner was grieving, and I felt like I had given up so much for him, and that's where the rage started coming in. Like, after our divorce, I started getting effing mad. In fact, one of the things that a really good friend told me to do, shout out to you, Venus, if you're watching this, I know you will be. She's like, Avni, you can't nice your way through these types of situations. And she told me to go break some ish. And I had never done anything like that before. So, and this was well before the advent of things like rage rooms and stuff like that. We have those things now, and I've been several times, and I highly, highly recommend working out your anger at something like a rage room. But I made my own damn rage room, and I went to the thrift store. I bought a bunch of glass items that were cheap. I went to the ceramic studio. I bought a whole bunch of things that students had left behind or that were like not fired. that were lost pieces. And I went to an empty field and I just like started naming things and throwing all of this fragile stuff down. And as it broke, I could feel myself releasing. And then this like overwhelming wave of grief and sadness came over me. And I started crying uncontrollably. That lasted for a few minutes. I mean, I literally thought I was going to stop breathing. And then I was fine because that stuff had just settled in my body, and I was carrying it for so many years. And I think at the back of that, it's like I did everything that I was told. You guys, I fulfilled my end of the bargain. I was a good Indian wife, and I did all of this, and it still wasn't good enough. At the end of that jag of crying was that feeling that like, man, I followed your instructions, and like all I got was a dumbass ex. Another topic for another day. So I went into what I called cave mode. And I have been in cave mode for the past 3 years. And in fact, this conversation with y'all is an attempt for me to come out of cave mode because there's just so much stuff that I've processed that I feel like I want to, tell people and share with people, because I know that I'm not the only one that's processing stuff like this. I can't be. So I took those years back, and I really had to rebuild after going through all of that. And that meant getting very quiet and very still for a long time. And from the age of 43 to 46, I've been in cave mode, and I'm not hiding. I just needed to sit with myself. I needed to reckon with some of this stuff. I needed it to come out of my body. I needed to come out on the other side. One question I was asking myself is like, who the hell am I when I'm not performing for anyone, when I'm not checking all these boxes to be this good Indian girl, this good Indian wife, this good wife programming. And I mean, some of the things that I've been doing just to try to work around that are things like lifting weights and trying new recipes every once in a while. And like, there's so many small acts of self honoring that I'm trying to feel strong in myself and to come back to who I feel like I am. I don't think I ever knew. And I'm starting to learn now, like, who the hell am I? So that's been the way back to myself. It's still happening. And, sometimes I'm like in the middle of a kettlebell swing and I'll feel like some old memory of my dusty ex telling me some BS, or my parents telling me something that I know that's not a part of my reality now. It just comes back and haunts you like a ghost. And I move through it. Move through the momentum of the kettlebell swing, and I keep going. And there are things that I feel that are happening in this cave time. There are physical changes happening in my cells. We're releasing all of that. Y'all have heard about 7-year cycles, and every 7 years your entire body renews. I definitely think that's happening. It's also ancestral. I think I've just put down some of the expectations that my ancestors have laid on me. And I'm pretty woo-woo. I feel and hear their messages. So I think I've just let go of their expectations. Like, I am not here to live your life or to finish your karma. More brown shit, but I'm not here to finish your karma. I have to do me. And so I'm just going to put this down. So I am rewriting the script, and here's sort of what I'm doing differently now with my current partner and in my current life. In my current marriage, I have made a conscious decision to try to not play this role that I was trained for. And it's so hard because I really want to be a nurturing, well-liked person. I'm such a people pleaser. And actually my husband is too. And we're both sort of working on that, but I'm trying to do it differently. And I name the emotional labor when I see it happening. That whole holding up half the sky, I try to at least name it and acknowledge it. I don't do it by default. But even now, my mom and my mother-in-law, bless their hearts, I love them, but they still say stuff to me like, Avni, it's up to you to keep your husband organized. My husband and I both have a touch of neurodivergence and ADHD. So, our stuff is, mine is like in concentrated piles. I have to do it for my brain to work. His, not so much. So they literally expect me to clean up after him and to organize his life. I'm not going to do that. In every video, I'm going to tell you what I'm not going to do. Because, like Melanie, who is leading the We Do Not Care movement, we do not care. And he can live in his mess. His mess is contained. And so, like, why is it up to me entirely? Why isn't this a shared responsibility? Why aren't you asking your son or your son-in-law to take care of himself better? And I love my husband, don't get me wrong. He's getting better. But he didn't get the same pressure as me. He did not get the same training as me to take care of all these things and be aware of all of these things. We've talked about it extensively. He's like, I was just sort of never asked to do this and it wasn't expected of me. And so he didn't develop that awareness. He developing that awareness now, you better believe. But his job was just to do well in school. And mine was to do well in school and do everything else that I talked to you about. So that comment from my friend about what she would tell her younger self. Here's what I would tell my younger self if I were to look back and just show her the same grace that I'm trying to extend to myself now. I wouldn't change anything if I go back in time, but I would say this to her. Whatever you're living through will be the source of your power in your 40s. You won't regret it. It will give you the clarity to choose and do better. And that is what we're trying to do. Just every day, just choose and do better. That's it. Just be that for ourselves. And I don't hate my culture. I love my culture. I mean, I live in freaking India. This is India. Hello. This background is India. But I also have the right to interrogate the core archetypes of my culture and take what works and leave what does not work behind. So my ancestors did what they knew. They did the best that they could in the moment, but I get to decide what I want to be now, and that's what we're doing. So this isn't about hating marriage or tradition. What I wanted to talk to y'all about today is that in this season of life, we have the opportunity to wake the F up. We're waking up. We're becoming conscious. We're becoming aware. And that mindfulness about our own lives and choosing is so important. It's about reclaiming your mind and getting rid of those voices that have existed for so long that told you that you have to be a certain way, do a certain thing, look a certain way, and just exist in some vibration that doesn't fit you. So I'm not trying to be a good wife anymore. I'm trying to be a good human and just be me. And I'm learning what being me looks like. And it's changing every day because I'm maturing and I'm becoming someone who I feel is pretty damn cool. So a woman who can feel what she feels, ask for what she needs, be honest with herself about what programming is kicking in when I'm doing something, who put that in my mind, and not apologize for existing because I don't fit the mold of whatever I was taught with this archetype of femininity or quote unquote the good wife. So these are things I'm unlearning. I feel this is going to resonate with so many of you out there. We all have our own good wife programming, and I want to know what yours is and what are you trying to unlearn in this moment. I want to hear it. I want to witness it with you. So pop into the comments and let me know, are you feeling this? Is this happening to you? Let's start a conversation, and I'll talk to you later.